So we're so glad that to hear that Hammer is coming back strong after all these years, and the old films are so rich and so dense with detail. Is that what you're hoping to bring back into the horror genre, sort of a more serious, more visceral kind of feel?
Definitely, definitely. I mean, I think that the Hammer genre has been usurped a little bit by what I call the torture porn films or pornography. I think, we're trying to say that we make smart horror. I don't mean, intellectual, but smart, that challenges audiences. I think, focusing on the quality of writing, it's very important, and the casting and the stories that we tell. So absolutely, it has to be reimagined and rebooted for now, because the films, may appear in some regards a little old-fashioned now, but they had such a can-do attitude in those days, and we're sort of trying to replicate that. But what I'm trying to do is bring horror back into a sort of a higher echelon, give it a little bit more nobility than it has had for a few years.
Well, I think one of the things that fans of Hammer know is this select group of actors that you guys had that have been in a ton of stuff even now. I mean, Peter Cushing and Chris Lee and all of these guys. Do you have a stable of actors that you're working to get back in here, or is that something you can't even concentrate on now because it's something that could happen just by happenstance?
Well, I think that the days were much simpler and more naive, and back in the 60s and 70s. And it's a great shame you can't do that as easily as you can. But we sort of like to think that we can create sort of characters and, if you like, Hammer heroines. Like Chloe, of course, like Hilary Swank, who's in The Resident. Oddly enough, we are actually beginning to develop Hammer theatre of horror, doing live theatre under the Hammer brand, which is going to be fantastic. And that's going to be much easier to have more of a group of people who work as a sort of repertory. In the old days, Peter Cushing would often go with a 2-day break from one movie to another. And sometimes the painted scenery was the reverse of the film he'd just been in, and it was incredible. He had a déjà vu. But so it's the business is more difficult now to do that. But I think there's so many actors and directors have a love affair with the original Hammer that I think we have a better chance than most.
Now, I want to know what surprised not genre fans and not the people that made the movie, the original Let the Right One In, is the pacing of the film. And I think it surprised a lot of people that real genre fans would accept that pacing and embrace it and enjoy it. Yes. And I'm wondering, is that same sort of pacing a part of this new film as well?
Yes, indeed it is. Indeed it is. I think that what it shows you, and it's almost back to your first question about the response to the original, is that people who love the genre, if the story is genuine, and if the action is genuine, and if the emotions are genuine, the pacing doesn't really matter. You need quite a lot of pacing when not a lot's happening, but when there's a lot going on, emotionally, psychologically, the pacing's perfect. It was in a sense, in that way of Swedish filmmaking, it was slow. I can't say that we're as slow, but certainly there's time to think. You need to let the relationship between the kids breathe. If you're just jumping around all the time, you don't get that chance for that to happen. I think Matt's done a phenomenal job that way, and the performances are staggering.